Practicing scales is of course part of the daily bread and butter for pretty much any musician, whatever instrument they play. And for good reason. Scales are the most marvelous vehicle for us to use to hone pretty much every aspect of our playing. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you 5 different scale variations. That means 5 different combinations of bow strokes and rhythms that I teach to my students in their first year of learning to play the cello. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Julia Morneweg, and on my channel I try to teach you in a really fuss-free and straight-talking manner how to master playing the cello. So if you're finding this useful, consider subscribing, smash that like button, and if you want to help me make lots more videos, you can now even leave me a little tip via the link below. Let's go and play some scales. For the purposes of today's video, I'm going to be demonstrating all the different variations using a 2-octave G major scale, but of course you can use whichever scale you like, be that in 1 octave, 2 octaves, or even already 3 octaves if you're working on that. And indeed, I would encourage you to really try that in as many different keys as you possibly can. So the first variation which I'm going to show you today is conceptually very simple. We are going to be playing long notes. So we're going to be playing 4 beats to a bow using the whole bow really from heel to tip. And to make sure that in that process I really maintain the same speed, I'm going to be setting a metronome. Now, my metronome for this is set to 60, but I would also encourage you to try it, not faster, but especially slower as well, because it gets harder the slower the tempo. So here is my metronome. And now I'm going to start using the whole bow. Looks simple enough. However, there are all sorts of challenges we have to negotiate if we want to do that well. So what am I looking for here? I want every single movement to be done smoothly and under control. So what do I mean by movements? I mean keeping the bow speed itself under control, achieving beautifully well prepared smooth bow changes, string crossings, and of course later on in the scale shifts as well. And one way I find that helps me to achieve that, if on the long notes I actually subdivide the last beat. So what I do is I count like so. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Why? Because it tells me exactly when that change is going to happen. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, change. You see, so by giving myself an exact point at which that bow change is going to happen, it gives me the signal on the last quarter beat, on the last crotchet beat of that long note, the bow change or the string crossing or shift or whatever it is slowly going to start. So I'm not waiting to think about my string crossing, my bow change or shift until that note is over. It very much starts on the last part of that note. So I'm going to show you one more time. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, change, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, change, 2, 3, prepare, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and prepare, and prepare for the string crossing. I'm going to show you the shift as well. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know whether you could see it there, but on the shift, you see that already pretty much on the third beat, the movement, that wave kind of, the preparation for the shift is already starting. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, prepare and release, and then it's a really easy shift to do. So that is the first variation. That's the one we have got to nail before we try to do anything else. Next, the next variation is, again, fairly straightforward. We are simply going to go for even slurs. So first of all, I'm going to do 2 beats to a bow, dividing the bow up evenly, and then later on 3 and 4. So 2, fairly straightforward, just half a bow to a note. You can see that all my movements start early. Next, we are going to try to gradually fit more notes onto one bow. 3s are always more challenging for string players, simply because that's inbuilt asymmetry in odd numbers simply goes kind of against the nature of our bowing a little bit. So we now, of course, we have to divide the bow in thirds, and I should also say that you've always got to leave a little bit of contingency for things such as string crossings or shifts. So always make sure, if you know that somewhere in those 3s there is a string crossing or a shift in there, you need to leave a little bit of extra bow for that. So let's do 3s. Obviously the 3 doesn't add up at the end. So what you can do is, and then it fits. Yeah. So now talking about 3s and obviously also going forward into trying to slur 4 bows, let me talk a little bit about controlling that. So controlling the bow distribution and controlling the legato in general. What is not going to work is if we simply sort of leave our arm to it and try to move the fingers at the same time and hope that it comes together. It won't. So the rhythmic distribution needs to be very much done in the right hand, that feeling of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That doesn't mean you have to put a big accent on. You don't go 1, 2, 3. You just have that awareness of where each note goes. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3. In 4, the same. 1, 2, 3. So it's always the same concept. The left hand follows the right hand, never the other way round. Only that way around. For our third variation, we are now combining slurs and separate bows. So what we're going to do is we're going to slur 2 notes, play 2 notes separate, slur 2 notes, play 2 notes separate. So here we have got, for each slur, we've got a whole bow. For each separate note, we have got a half bow, like so. And so on and so forth. Now, that obviously means that on each stroke we'll be using different parts of our arm. So, whole bow, next 2 notes are played in the upper half. So we'll be using our lower arm. Whole bow, lower half of the bow. So we'll be using the upper arm. And so on and so forth. You can also turn that exercise on its head, of course, and start with the 2 separate notes. Again, you can see that every movement is really well prepared. Everything gets anticipated and that little bit, which is really important to get a smooth result. Variation number 4 involves playing fast repeated notes, and that's a really good way to start introducing speed into your practice, but it's also a really good way to practice your détaché stroke, which I spoke about I think a couple of weeks ago. So to start with, we are going to simply play each note 4 times. So we're going to do that first of all, pretty much in the starting in the middle of the bow. So you're going to be using this sort of part of the bow here, yeah, using our hinging from the elbow, using our lower arm. Let's go. Now, you can see here when I'm doing that you see a lot of movement in the hand, in the fingers. All of that movement is entirely passive. So I am not setting out to move my fingers left or right or anything else. I've talked in my détaché video, I've talked about that at length, this idea that really the movement comes from the arm and everything here in the hand is just so supple, really, like I think I spoke about seaweed, that idea that it just sort of gets moved along by the tide. So we need to really create the condition to do that by having incredibly soft joints. The bow hold is really as light as can be, and my contact with the bow is very, very, very light indeed, and nothing is locked. So the thumb joints are flexible. The knuckles up here are flexible. that quick succession of bow changes. Now, I've started with 4, now I'm going to take it down to 3. Of course, 3 is always a little bit more difficult because one group starts on the down, next group starts on an up. So, note that the speed of each note that I play stays exactly the same from 4 to 3. So what happens by definition is that gradually your left hand has to start moving faster. So now we go down to 2 notes. So you see now my left hand already had to work twice as fast as it did when we did 4. So that's a really good way to start introducing faster playing into your practice. Lastly, variation number 5, and here we are combining crotchets or quarter notes with repeated semi-quavers or 16th notes, as you have just seen. So this is a real bow distribution exercise because we are going to aim to use the whole bow for our quarter note, and then either extreme of the bow, either the very tip or the very heel for our semi-quavers. So that's what it's going to look like. Whole bow, 4 semis. Whole bow. And so on and so forth. You can see that the challenge here is that actually to cover the whole bow in that length of time is not actually that easy. So you have to be, the trick is you have to be quick and light. So don't press into the string, just quick movement, especially of the upper arm. You see, so just really just brush. Yeah, and then of course doing the semi-quavers on sort of each outer end of the bow also has its challenges because we need to kind of use different muscles for each. Yeah, so here we have a really open arm by that point. So here we have to use wrist and fingers a little bit to create those fast notes. Yeah, so now take a look, and the thumb is also involved in that. That's why it can't be stiff, because we need to have that flexibility. Return to the heel, totally different challenge. Here the movement actually comes from the upper arm, and again our hand has just got to be really flexible and accommodating all these quick changes. The purpose of that variation is really to learn to control which part of the bow you are actually in, so that you need to learn really from the word go that bow distribution and bow speed are not something to leave to chance. In fact, actually that's partly the purpose of all these different variations, and that's why it's such an absolutely wonderful thing to practice on your scales. And So I do the variations with my students really pretty religiously, and once they then come to here in England to doing their AVRSM exams, where obviously the scale patterns they have to do are much more straightforward, they are finding it so easy because they have developed that really good sense of control by that point. So I hope that this has given you some new practice inspiration. As usual, if you have got any questions, please post them into the comment section below, and I'm always happy to answer and hear from you. And I've had a very long day today. I have done a rehearsal, a lot of practice, and now late at night have sat down to make one of these videos. So I'm off to bed, and I will see you in a few days for another one. Bye bye.